Okay, wonderful. So appreciate y'all joining us today. Today we're going to go through what is a crazy space that is broadly all the fun of generative AI. And honestly, the first use case, the first place that everyone's really jumping off at this is really around coding. And so today, what we just wanted to give you is some learning over the last 5, 6 years that we've been doing this, what we've seen, what we're seeing, some of those trends, myths, realities, adoption, just a ton of the questions that we get every single time we talk to people. So what we want today is George's going to lead us through some basic discussion. If you could please, by all means, answer or ask questions in the Q&A. And if someone doesn't mind pinging me, I always like to just validate. So if someone sees the Q&A, if you don't mind adding a question or a hello, I always like to just validate that I'm not crazy, that it's all looking good. But that's a great place to ask questions as we're going. The way I go about that process is I will take those and then we'll surface them either in context, because obviously I kind of know where we're headed, might fit in context, or it might just be a fascinating one as a sidebar or a deeper dive into something that's relevant to where we stand. So with that said, if you have any questions, answer them in the Q&A. Otherwise, I'm obviously going to bring up some of those as we through those that show up. And so with no further ado, I'm going to introduce Dror Weiss. Dror is one of our founders here at Tab9. He's been at and in this space for really his whole career around making developers more productive and making them, allowing them to work on the work that they love, and in some ways doing a lot of the stuff that we all as developers don't want to. And so with I venture to say several decades of fun experience, Dror's seen this from every angle and talk to more customers than we can imagine. And so I thought this would just be a great time for him to share that with us. Dror, it's over to you.
Yeah.
Thank you for walking us through this, and look forward to the conversation.
Hey, thank you so much, Brendan, and thanks everybody for attending our webinar today. So I'm a CEO and co-founder of Tab9. We're a pioneer in this space of AI for software development, shipped the industry's first AI-powered assistant for coding back in 2018. Obviously with different technology back then before language models existed, but we're really at for a long time in this space. All right, so we're getting to the very end of 2023, and this year was really fascinating for the generative AI space in general, but in particular the space of AI for software development. And I think it is what the incredible push we saw in the space this year is only an appetizer, a warm-up for what we're gonna see next year in 2024. It's happening big time. And the reason this perfect storm of interest in using generative AI for software development is twofold. First of all, there's I think almost unprecedented demand for software and software development and software development productivity. We're still the economy is still somewhat not at a peak. Everybody needs to keep budgets at under control, and everybody's also competing on talents with with the big techs fighting to hire and retain talent. So getting more productivity out of each team, out of each developer is really top of mind for every organization we talk with. But on the other hand, what we've seen, this has been the case for a few years now, but what we've seen in the last year since ChatGPT launched and since so many LLMs came out is that we have powerful AI technology that we could literally dream of just 2 years ago. And these LLMs are getting so much better, so much powerful in predicting what code we're gonna need, in answering questions for us, in generating code and tests for us. And not only are they getting so powerful, they're also commoditizing. Initially, there was OpenAI and the GPT series. Now there are so many other players, some of them API players like OpenAI, some of them are open source models that people can install. So, so with the availability and commoditization of LLM and the demand for engineering productivity, it's no wonder that every enterprise is basically looking how they could use, how can they leverage generative AI for making the software development better today. So so again, we've been in this space for a while, and this year was really unprecedented in the demand and inbound interest we got from so many customers. So I want to really quickly cover where the space is today. So today, Tab9 and in large all the players in this field are AI assistants for developers, meaning that the developer is in the front, the developer is ultimately responsible for the code that's being produced, but there's an extremely powerful AI to help them. And the interaction model for this is twofold. First of all, there's a conversation-based user experience, like you see here in a screenshot, that is typically chat-based or some other interaction where the developer sort of asks the AI to do something, and the other user experience is suggestion, where the developer just goes about their day or writing some comments, and the AI is contextually suggesting code and completing. In sum, the AIs that we have today, Tabna and the rest, the average developer can expect 30 to 50% productivity boost. And we believe that as the technology matures and evolves, the AI will only get better and take a more prominent role in the software development lifecycle, being not just in the coding, but also other parts of the SDLC, and taking on lots and lots of responsibilities as a not just as an assistant. In some cases, I think it's now a pretty much a consensus that in a few years from now, AI is going to create the vast majority of the code in the world. So this is the future. But again, already in today's world of AI assistants, it's an extremely compelling value proposition for every organizations to control. And I want to take the rest of these
Just
sessions. Yeah.
sorry, Drew, I think something that would be fun for maybe some people, obviously some of the developers have played with this, it might be a little more obvious, but you've kind of two modalities here that we're talking about. Just do you mind sharing a little bit of what those modalities like? Why would someone be in one modality versus another in terms of working? Because they net to 30 to 50% productivity, which is awesome, but they're kind of getting into it two very different ways. So just maybe two minutes on that for the teams and the people that maybe haven't gotten to play with it. And
Yeah.
I'm going to sneak a peek in here. End of this, you're all going to get an email with 3 months free of Tab 9, so you can go use this yourself. So just for context, that's also a cheap lead in into the end of the story. But yeah, Drew, if you would, I think those are
Yeah.
interesting for people to know.
Yeah. One way to think about it is macro interactions versus micro interactions. So the code completion is, or the suggestion-based interaction with AI. I think its strength is that you don't need to do anything to get it. You just go about your day, and the AI comes to you. You don't deviate from your normal workflow. So this is almost by definition the workhorse for Tab9 and for all other competitors in this space, because you don't need to remember, oh, let's see if the AI has something useful to say. You just, go about your day, and if the AI has something significant to offer, it will make this suggestion. The chat and the other sort of voluntary interaction models with AI means that hey, I know something that I want to ask the AI, and this really what warrants this is if you want to assign bigger tasks to it, like generate a piece of software for me, or create tests for me, or find issues in this code. So these are the cases where you want the AI explicitly to do something. These are typically bigger tasks than what you get in an autocomplete or suggestion-based interaction.
That's awesome. Jor, keep moving, and we're starting to get some questions. And so, Farhad, we'll get to your question. I'm just reading through it. Thank you for answering or asking it, and I'll both answer it, but I think we'll answer these as we go. So keep going, Jor. You're good. I've got some good questions rolling in now.
Okay, good. So obviously there's a lot of interest in this space now, and I want to take the rest of our time, or the most of the time we have left, to go some of the myth or the misconception we hear in the market from customers we talk with and other people we talk with, and try to sort of debunk them or put them in broader context to educate everybody on what we think is the reality in this space. So the first thing that we hear all the time, especially if you read the media, that the LLMs are basically the thing. We read in the media, hey, there's a new LLM that competes with GitHub Copilot. Well, GitHub Copilot is not an LLM, and the LLM is basically a machinery. It's like an engine to your car. You cannot use this engine or battery to drive your kids to school. So the LLM is a critical underlying component, but in reality, the LLMs are getting commoditized. They're getting more similar than different. Okay, and a lot of what makes your experience as a developer using AI shine is the application. Actually, we in Tab9, for instance, we work with many LLMs, and we're adding a bunch of additional LLMs. But the experience is pretty is generally consistent because the application is what makes it really shine. It's what takes care of the user interaction, and to make sure everything is integrated into your workflows, whether it's chat or code completion, and how what are the hooks that lead to these experiences. And the integration into the editors, the IDs are obviously LLMs don't talk to IDs directly. Obviously, the code assistant applications are super critical to make it work. I think it gets more interesting though with the application. Again, the LLM is it's not a dumb machinery, it's a smart machinery, but it's still a machinery. And the quality of what you could get as a developer from the LLM depends to great extent to the context that you're able to give it and the way you process the results. So one of the really smarts and the most heavy and sophisticated logics of Tab9 is how to really craft the underlying prompt for the LLM. And this is true regardless to which LLM specifically we're working with. And this what takes care of how we really understand your project, how we really understand your code. This goes to some textual methods to understand your code and craft the right context, and also to semantic code understanding methods that really bring the right context for every LLM. So the key takeaway from this is LLM is a powerful machinery, but it overwhelmingly the most critical factor in the quality of results you get from it is the context that it is given, and to be given powerful context, you need a really good AI application that connects the development workflow with the AI layer. Now, again, to make this AI assistance a product that's useful in enterprise setting, again, the LLM logic is far from being enough. You need you need to take care of security, deployment, controls, management. You typically, if you want to show some ROI or usage figures to management, you also need some decent reporting. And again, these are the things that AI code assistant applications such as Tab9 can provide. And again, so the misconception I want to debunk is basically don't choose an LLM for software development assistant. You choose an AI application such as Tab9, GitHub Copilot, and a few others.
I think your dovetails nicely question that Farhad had, and Farhad's going to give me a quick heads up on this, but his question is around um, getting back what kind of suggestion you get back on based off of what your interaction looks like. So um, the right suggestion, the right time, in the right place. So I think maybe can you delineate a little, maybe a little bit further, maybe at a high level, hey, multiple models, but most importantly, sort of what that user interaction looks like, because I think what he's hitting at, and Farhad, make sure feel free to correct me. I think he's really hitting on the idea of like he's using it mostly in the chat complete or in inline. So how do we think about those different actions? Maybe one step deeper, because I think he's hitting at, hey, we've thought about this in chat being a different way to interact with the versus what you might do in even inline versus end of line. Do you mind adding maybe a smidge more color, which is might get to kind of Farhad's question in terms of how
Yeah.
users experience it?
Yeah, first of all, I'm looking at the actual question for Farhad, and from a glance, it seems that he's sort of trying to uh, he's working with a code completion functionality, but he's actually wanting chat, like wanting to ask the AI to do something appropriately. And I'm guessing that he doesn't always get what he wants this way. So the the way this works, if you are at code completion, it's at the end of the day a statistical model that basically computes what is likely to follow a part of the code that's structured like you write it. And typically you don't get questions or requests as a part of the code that's created. So this is why code completion would probably give results that are not sufficient. Chat, however, uses an LLM that was trained specifically on answering questions and fulfilling requests. So if you were to ask this same question to chat, you probably get much better answers. Um, I want to your question, Brandon, what we do in the interaction model, and this is very pronounced in the code completion, we take great effort and attention to be precise to the user intent. So if you're starting a function or a method with after giving a signature, for instance, we try to give you the full body. But if you're in the middle of the body, we'll probably go line by line. If you're middle of the line, we'll probably give you the rest of the line. So in general, we try to be again, it's heuristic, but we try to be very sensitive to the user mental state and what they're trying to achieve, rather than just throwing that whatever the LLM emits in the user. So again, I would say 80% of of the effort in the product is really honing in on what the user is trying to accomplish.
I think that was spot on. Farhad, obviously, you're the one that gets to validate, so feel free to add a follow-up comment. And again, anyone else add some more questions. But Jor, I think that's really helpful. So thank you adding that extra color for us.
Okay. Second thing, it's more to the enterprise users among us. So many people think that, hey, I need to choose just one solution for my company, and I need to choose, let's say, between Tabnine and GitHub Copilot. What we found is that in many cases, especially for the bigger customers, they say, "Hey, we're gonna use two or usually two or maybe three at some cases products for different use cases, different groups within the company, because bigger companies has really diverse needs among groups. So, for instance, one of our customers said, "Yeah, I'm using Copilot for non-critical code that I don't mind, that it's being sent out to Microsoft and OpenAI, but for really sensitive code, I'm gonna use Tab9. I'm gonna deploy it behind their firewall and to be on their control on what gets on the privacy and security of that code." Some companies say, yeah, this group prefers Tab9, while the other group prefers something else. So just to think to know that many customers use more than one solution. It could be either domain or group based or personal preference of developer based in some companies. Um, other thing, oh, sorry, other thing we hear quite a lot from customers who are less educated, that LLMs can only run in the cloud behind the APIs. And if you want to use an AI code assistant, you basically need to share your code outside your network, outside your org. And because everybody is, at the end of the day, relying on OpenAI. Many of the people I talk with say, "Hey, we have a private deployment at Tabna." They say, "Yeah, but at the end of the day, you use GPT 3.5 or GPT 4." Well, we don't. There are players like us that provide a completely self-managed solutions. We, by the way, run our own inference stack. We don't, regardless if you use Tab9 on the cloud or use it on a self-managed server, we don't use an external API for running your inference. If you run Tab9 on your virtual private cloud or on premise, the data stays completely on your machine, and we're not the only player to do so. So again, depending on customer needs, yes, some products such as GitHub Copilot and Code Whisperer require you to send code to external parties, and the others, such as Tab9, let you keep everything inside your firewall. Next thing that we hear now from many customers, again about specifically about GitHub Copilot, they say, "Oh yeah, it uses OpenAI, but we get a private endpoint inside our virtual private cloud, so it's the same as a self-managed solution." Well, it's not really it's not really the same. If it's a shared infrastructure, you need to rely on the party that basically runs the inference for you to keep your code private and secure. And I'm trust that I know that OpenAI and the others are doing a good job. But if you need to control your own destiny, then you may need something that's really self-managed. I think as a rule of thumb, you can say if you're not paying for GPU instances, then somebody else is running the inference. Somebody else is running the inference for you, and it's not really isolated. Again, it's isolated to a degree. Um, okay, moving on. And after this, I'll do a pause for Brandon to intervene with a question. Now, yeah, I'm sure many of you have heard about the lawsuit that has been in our space against Microsoft and OpenAI for violating open source licenses. Again, now I'm definitely not a lawyer and not an expert in this space. But what happened after that was pretty interesting. Microsoft, under some terms, offered many customers indemnity, saying, "Hey, yeah, GitHub Copilot, there is this lawsuit, but you can stay. You don't need to worry because if you get in trouble and get sued, we'll indemnify you. We'll pay you so that you're not harmed from everybody suing you for using Copilot." Now, this is good for the customers, and a lot of customers asked us, "Hey, yeah, but I get this indemnity. Why should I care?" So everybody needs to know, first of all, if you're uh, if you're running um, yeah, what you do with open source compliance and your ethics are your decision and your responsibility, and you should make the choice based on your guidelines ethically and legally. And the other thing you need to know that this indemnity applies with there are some stars on it. What we hear from many of our customers, both in the EU and in the US, that yeah, they offer their indemnity, but this is not really good for them. I mean, if we are at some point are forced to open source our software, then no indemnity is gonna be sufficient for us to cover for this damage. So again, when you choose your provider, be very uh, thoughtful about what you need to in order to comply to your open source usage requirements and how you make these choices. I'll pause here for a sip of water and for Brandon
Uh,
to intervene with questions or comments.
Perfect.
So
Yeah, Max, I mean, your questions, I'm going to sort of pull all of sort of quick summary and Dor will have a few more. But Max, just hey, best use cases for Tab 9. Again, since we started Tab 9, I guess the blessing of where Tab 9 started was we always had to start with being as a startup, fully transparent, respectful of every code because we're a startup, and that's what people aren't going to hand over your stuff to startup when we began. So the result of that has just been from day one, we've always been transparent about where the code comes from, how we train it, where it runs, and so the use case, Max, you can kind of just be fairly simple. You know, if I'm going to be simple, I added some really good examples, and there's some more there, but really it just comes down to if it's important to you to where the code came from, how it was trained, where the data is going, and that is important in any of your decision process, that's absolutely where Tab 9 shines. And it's the space that you should look for it. So I hope that's the primary places, and it's the place we're pretty uniquely differentiated. And again, I think Jor's given some pretty good examples of ways to think about that in terms of the questions that you should be asking and how those play out. But I hope that helps. And Jor, feel free to add some more. Obviously, I've added comments
yeah.
in here to
Yeah,
what we saw.
for use cases, yeah, I want to take also a step back about use cases. So I think developers and enterprises use us for spinning up development, right? Tab9 works for all popular IDEs and all popular programming languages, and right now the primary use case for Tab9 is really coding. Okay, developers who use Tab9 can expect 30 to 50% of their code getting automated by AI, and obviously it's quicker, it's faster time to market, and it's typically also more consistent with the code in your project, which also generally leads to higher quality of the code. But the as we see, the reason why use AI assistants in general is for first and foremost still productivity. This is, I mean, productivity in the SDLC. And the reason why to specifically use Tab9 is first and foremost Again, code privacy, security, and personalization.
That's good. Jordan, thank you for taking a step back up. I think, in fairness, Max, I went to differentiation. I think wherever you'd like, we'd have to ask them, but the use cases are really useful. So I think we'll get to that. Also includes things like now testing and documentation, some other really interesting use cases. Jor, I think you might hit on a few of those, but that's areas with chat that's also opened up not just the code completion, but unit testing and documentation, code description, are also areas that are have been opened up from use cases.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have just a few more topics to cover. So yeah. So one of the things, this is that we're getting to some of my favorites, myths. Some of our customers tell us, hey, the code in my project is so special, so the standard AI models won't be any good for them. Um, we've yet to really see that in practice. For most of the customers we talk with, the AI model, a generic AI model does extremely, the LLMs are extremely good at generalizing. And unless you're using something, use virtually no open source components, no common languages, and really live in a universe on your own, the standard AI models that Tab9 and others provide really great assistance for developers. And it is currently our recommendation to all customers who evaluate the technology to start with the standard model, see what it gives them and what not, and then consider some techniques for personalization to get the extra specificity for their project. But maybe surprisingly to some, the AI models that we use, and to be honest, also the competitors are so powerful that they provide really good assistance for virtually all cases. Statistically, your code isn't that unique so the AI model is really the standard AI model universal is pretty useful in virtually every customer we see.
Jor, I'm going to add just little, since I get to do all the adoption fun. I'd say just building on that statement, yes, 100%. This is also when customers ask order of adoption. This really ties into like, yes, a custom model will be powerful, but you do have to have really good code and you need to kind of, service it. Order of operation is, we see the most success of developers and teams rolling out Tab9 broadly. And then as we find teams that go like, oh, hey, this is the COBOL team. Perfect. That's probably a good place for a custom model. But rather than trying to solve for a small group of developers, to maybe build on this, to Jor's point, most of your developers in an organization will get significant value from Tab9 day one. So let's get that out there. And then the process of customization, otherwise that's iterative. So we kind of think like, first step, broadly, go with a broad adoption strategy, is definitely we've seen most successful. And then get more specific as teams mature, as teams pull together their code if they want to do a custom model, those kind of things. But to Jor's point, most teams do get a ton of value right out of the bat. And so just if you're thinking or you're leading a team or thinking about adoption, think broad and wide and then get to more specific versus trying to solve to a specific problem as an example for a broader organization. Anyway, sorry, little piece of adoption piece we've seen.
Thank you, Brandon. And when it does come to personalization, knowing your code, I think this is really a common misconception. Many customers say, "Hey, yeah, but when it comes to being specific for my code, I need to train a custom model or fine-tune the Tab9 model on my code in order to really be familiar with it. Now, many people who sort of dealt with AI or LLMs to some degree, this is sort of this is where their head goes. And more often than not, we see that this is not the best approach for a few reasons. If you think about it conceptually, doing this sort of hard codes some of the patterns in your code into the LLM. And this has a few negative implications. First of all, you need a massive amount of such code, sorry, in order to move the needle for the LLM. So unless this is really a huge corpus of code that you want to fine-tune the LLM on, there's no use of doing so. Secondly, um, training is or fine-tuning is a very expensive operation, compute-wise and time-wise. If you do so, keep in mind that when your code change and your best practice change, retraining is a heavy and expensive operation. Thirdly, if you often will want if you're a big company, you will often want some different code for different teams, for different projects. So you end up saying, hey, I have this custom fine-tuned model for group X and this fine-tuned custom model for group Y and this fine-tuned custom model for group Z. And now you need to host them all to run the inference. So in Tab9, you end up, again, it's doable, but you end up spinning inference servers in parallel, and this gets very expensive and very cumbersome to manage. So this is not the approach that we typically recommend unless you have a completely new language or custom language or something that's totally different from what our AI has saw. What's the approach that we're recommending, we are taking with our enterprise product is to use what is called retrieval augmented generation. This is for those of you who are not familiar in the ML community. I think over the last year, this has been extremely popular term. It means that in order to get the specificity for your project and your code, you don't train the model, but instead you create a database or a sophisticated index of your specific code. And then when you want to answer questions or generate some code suggestion, your AI application pulls the relevant documents from this index and gives them as context to the LLM. So the LLMs, as I said at the beginning of this talk, are extremely powerful in contextualizing and factoring in the context. So it turns out that if in the prompt that Tab9 crafts for the LLM, it mentions the relevant document, this heavily impacts the answer that you'll get and gets, in many cases, the specificity that we need. And this is without the expensive effort for retraining or fine-tuning the model. And this is without having to host different models in parallel. So all in all, this is a more economic, more agile, and generally the approach that we recommend in order to get specificity for and personalization for the AI assistance you will get from Tab9. I'll pause here for questions. This point is rather technical. If there are questions, I'm happy to address.
Right now, I think we're okay, Jor, but if anyone does, please go ahead and type it. We can certainly circle back. So I know I think we have a few more minutes, so we'll finish up just so everyone knows, and feel free to answer the last few questions. We'll cover those as we finish. But I think one or two, and then we'll go from there. But I think we're okay right now, Jor.
Good, thank you. Another thing we get quite a lot is saying, hey, the AI will generate poor code for me, or actually people think the AI will generate fantastic code for me. Uh, Neither is generally always the case. Again, the LLMs are extremely context sensitive. This means that they will follow whatever quality of code that exists in your project. So if you use it in a project that's very well structured with good code patterns, it will generally follow the same code patterns. And if you run it on a project that has crusty spaghetti code that nobody can read, it will likely produce code in the same quality. So again, people call LLMs parrots in a derogatory manner, but it's actually a good. They sort of give you more of what you have, which is generally what you need in many cases. So just bear that in mind. There's no like silver bullet. Oh, I'm gonna use tab 9 and all the quality of all my code is gonna be top notch. That's not necessarily the case. It generally follows the quality of the code that exists in your project. Um, and I think with that, I just want to wrap up with what at Tab 9 we believe are there are now many players in the market, but how we see our place and what we want to provide to our customer. There are three core values that we believe in for especially for the enterprise customers. First of all, but not just for everybody. First of all, privacy. Tab 9 will never leak your code. It will always kept private, and it is never used. We don't suck your code and train models. We will never do that. Secondly, a core thing for us is getting personalized. We let you control where you host it, how you host it. We're gonna add support to all popular LLMs. We work with all the IDEs. Again, some of the products are getting tied to specific ecosystems. Like think, okay, GitHub is now very tied to the GitHub ecosystem. We're gonna work with all the IDEs, all the source controls, all the clouds, all the languages that, based on customer choice. And thirdly, the protected is security. We'll let you run completely isolated or even on-prem. So basically, we want for customers who need to sort of control where the code goes to, we can provide this ability. And again, our SaaS cloud is also fully secured and doesn't send the code to any external parties. So these are the things we build on and continue to build on for our customers, and these are the things that we believe the bigger enterprise customers, based on what they tell us, this is what they need and what they want from their AI assistants. So with that, I'd love to thank you all for attending the webinar today, and I'd love to answer any questions that are still open if there are any.
Sure, I think we're good on questions, so I think I'm gonna give us a quick two last steps for everyone. So George, thank you for taking us through all that. Obviously, we're excited to talk to you all, whether you have a team adopting, you're part of an enterprise, or most importantly, thank you all for joining today. Please look for an email you're going to be getting with us, a gift of 3 months free of Tab 9 Pro. So you'll be getting that. Just look for that in your email box. We appreciate you all spending time with us and look forward to more conversations. Again, fun space. Please keep your ear to the ground. It's changing very, very rapidly. And we're here to try and give you guys answer all the questions we can about plus, minuses, and trade-offs that you see in adopting what is we think is a pretty promising new area in software development. So thank you all for joining us today. George, thanks for obviously walking us through that. And all you spend some time with us. Appreciate it. Look for that email from us, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks all.
Thank you all.